Hey everyone, it's Lindsay Hoffman and welcome to the Dose of Bliss show. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. Today, I'm very excited. I always say this, but I always have all these amazing special guests that are angels on earth. I have publicist and recovering addict Samir.
Yeah.
Yay!
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. You know how much I love you.
I love you too. So what I want everyone watching to know is, so Samir, he's a publicist in Hollywood, and we meet people and we never know their story. But I'm really fortunate to have such amazing people who are so open with their souls and their lives. And he shared with me that he's a recovering addict. And you really never know what other people are going through in life, especially when you look at people in Hollywood and doing all these things. You don't know the things they overcame to be there. And so that's the purpose of the show and why I have you here today. So can you please share a little bit of your story? Like, how did you get into addiction and what was that like?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
I think you're amazing and I love you so much.
I love you too.
And addiction runs in my family. My dad was an addict. My grandpa was an addict. And I'm sure I have other family members who, not sure, I know they're addicts, but they'll never admit it. But, you know, they have addicts, they demonstrate addict-like behavior. So I started my addiction innocently enough with, like, in college. You know, it was, you know, somebody had a bag of meth. And I was just like, what is that? And they were like, you know, you want to try some? I'm like, sure. And just to backpedal a little bit, I grew up, like I said, my dad was an addict, an alcoholic. And I always thought to myself, I would never be an addict or an alcoholic because I don't want to go through what I saw my dad and my grandpa go through. But I believe it just runs in you. You're born with it. It's like something that happens physiologically to your body that you're predisposed to being an addict. And I believe I was that individual. Like I feel like I had whatever genetic mutation.
Like an addictive nature.
Yes, thank you. And so I always said to myself, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be like that. I don't want to be like that. And it turned out to be, I was even hardcore into drug use. Like, they only did alcohol. I did, you know, a litany of drugs. And, you know, so I was in college and I lived with a whole bunch of roommates in an apartment. And we were all doing the underage drinking thing like every college student does. And I was just like, you know, I put my foot down, like, we can't get into trouble. We can't get thrown out of school because they have a zero tolerance and, you know, whatever. And then somebody was like, well, they pulled out a baggie of drugs. And I'm like, what is that? And I was like, oh my God. And they were like, you want to try it? And I said, sure. And ironically enough, the person who introduced me to it is still one of my best friends today. He moved to New York, is a successful fashion designer. Works for a big fashion house as one of their head people or whatever. And he's the one that got me hooked onto it. And I could not stop, Lindsay. I could not stop. Like, I was hooked right from the word go. Like, I was done. I was hooked. It's a powerful, powerful drug. And that's the danger of that. That's the dangerous part of it. It's that damn addicting. And it started off really friendly or innocently enough with friends and just parties, socializing and, you know, whatever. But it really got out of control. When I lived back east, I studied broadcast journalism. And I was like, I want to work in news. I want to work in radio news. I want to work in, you know, television media. And so what happened is I moved out to California and I got an opportunity to but to work at a radio station as the third mic. So it was like the host, co-host, and they needed like a third mic member to the show. And I got to be that person, which the name Glamour Samir came out. That's the name that people have given me when I was in radio, was Glamour Samir, over the top, flamboyant, you know, character on this radio program. And this was like, you know, 18, 17, 18 years ago. And the radio program was really, really popular. And while I was on the air, I was using drugs. I would go in every morning, you know, we did the morning show. I'd have to be there like at 4 or 3:30, 4 o'clock. I'd have to produce my little segment, write it, produce it, whatever else. And I would be there high.
What drugs were you doing? Multiple drugs, or what are you?
I was doing meth at that time. And meth, let's just be honest, meth is huge in the gay community. It is huge. And it's like it's a pandemic. It's like a pandemic within a pandemic, you know, like it's like really big in the gay community. And I would go to work high, you know, I would.
Did they know?
What's that?
Did they know?
No, I don't think they did. I don't know. You know, I don't think they did, but I thought I was like, you know, all that in a bag of chips, girl, because let me tell you, the radio station would send me to a club to host, like they'd be like, oh, come join Glamour Sammer from, you know, the radio station, at the club or whatever. And I thought I was shit. Like I thought I was, you know, like, ooh wee, like I'm on, you know, and that really fueled my using, because I thought like everything was in order. I had a great job, radio and everything else. Well, I was doing that for a while, and then the another big, huge radio company, who I won't name, came in and bought that station, and then they took all of their talent and all their producers and found them other jobs at their other radio station. So I transferred to another radio station where I was a morning show producer, and I was still using. I was still going to work high. I'd have to be there early in the morning, produce this damn radio show, which I couldn't stand because I hated the music. I hated the program director. I hated the host of the show, who was also the program director. I just couldn't stand it, but I was like, I tolerated it. So while I was doing that, I was also working with a big time publicist in Hollywood, and she was throwing huge parties, Oscar parties, Grammy parties, CD release parties. At that time, there were CDs, huge parties with like mega stars. And, you know, she had hired me to become her assistant, and she was fabulous. She was great. She trusted me, and she knew I could do a good job, and whatever. But I was going to these huge red carpet events, Lindsay, high as a kite. You know, I won't name any celebrities, but there was one really popular celebrity everybody will know. She walks into the bathroom, and it was at the Jim Henson Studios years ago on La Brea and Sunset. And we had an event there, and she walks into the bathroom with like 3 of her girlfriends, and they all come out doing this. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, I do the same thing. I'm like, and that, again, that just solidified the fact that I'm doing everything right. If this actress is doing it, I can do it. Mm-hmm. So, eventually, things got really out of hand. I was living in Marina Del Rey in a like beachside, great. I was on the radio, things were great, whatever. And then that nice apartment turned into an apartment further inland. And that apartment further inland turned into renting a room. And that renting a room turned into sleeping in a garage. And that sleeping in a garage turned into sleeping into my car, because my addiction was so incredibly powerful. I could not stop. I needed to get my fix. And here I am. I finished school. I have work experience. I've made connections. I didn't give a shit about any of that. Can I cuss? I'm sorry if I cuss.
Yeah, you can.
I didn't give a shit about any of that. I was like, fuck it, I'm done. I don't care. This is what I need to do. And it just consumed so much of my life, to the point where I became a drug dealer. I was selling dope. I was going downtown to Skid Row selling dope there, which is extremely dangerous. I didn't give a shit. I wanted to, that was the life that I wanted. I had been to jail twice. I had been involved in home invasion robberies. I wasn't the one doing it. I was just in a home when shit went down. And I lived that life for so long. I was in jail for fighting. I was, you know, police arrested people in Hollywood back in the day, left and right.
When was
Like,
this?
what's that?
When was this?
This was like in 2006, 7. If you were out, like if you were in West Hollywood or there was a club called The Arena, if you were out there at these certain hours of the day or at night, then you were going to be in trouble, because there's anything after midnight, you're up to no good. So I just lived that life for a long time. Then I experienced a lot of shit too, a lot of traumatic stuff. Like, you know, one of my good friends hanged himself in my apartment when I lived in downtown LA. Like I remember leaving the apartment early in the morning. My drug dealer, of all people, calls me and he says, "Hey, can you come help me move some stuff out of my storage?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I'm leaving my apartment, and this guy who killed himself, his name was Jay, he was on my couch, and I just said, you know, "I'll be right back." And he didn't say anything to me. And I said, "You know what, fuck you." And I walked out. I came back about 45 minutes later. I came back at like 8:30, 8:45. And I had left my key. And I couldn't get in. So I went upstairs to my apartment. I knocked on the door, and he wouldn't answer. But I hear Jay walking back and forth. And I'm like, what the fuck? Answer the door. Like, I'm knocking on the door, calling the cell, I'm knocking on the door, calling the cell, and he wouldn't answer. Finally, at like 8:55, I walked downstairs to the management, and I'm like, "Can you guys open my door?" And they're like, "Well, if we open it now, it's before 9 o'clock. You know, you're gonna have to pay an extra fee." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll just forget it. I'll just wait an extra 5, 7, 10 minutes or whatever it was." Well, in that time, Jay had he hanged himself, and that, you know, the security guard or the maintenance guy comes upstairs, opens the door. I walk in, I go to my bedroom, and I lived on the 7th story. And I thought instantly to myself, Lindsay, I'm like, "Oh my God, he jumped out the window." And then I looked down from the 7th story window, and I'm like, well, if he would have jumped, there would have been a scene down there. There was nothing. So I'm like, what the hell? I walk into my walk-in closet, turn on the light, he's not there. And it's still, it upsets me to this day, because I opened the door and there he was, his lifeless body dangling from a belt that he used to kill himself. And I screamed from the top of my lungs, and I wrapped my hands around him, and the neighbor came running because they heard me screaming, and I lifted his body up like this, and the neighbor took the thing off, the noose that he used to, the belt, noose, whatever, that he used to hang himself, and they administered CPR, but he didn't make it. And that was traumatic, so traumatic for me. Like, until this day, I'm still haunted by that. Plus, you know, being robbed at gunpoint, being shot at, the Jay dying, committing suicide. It was a lot. And from that point, I started even, tail spinning. So.
And what did it feel like when you were starting to tailspin? Like, what did you feel like
what did it feel like when what?
Like when you were about to tailspin, when you were getting closer to rock bottom.
I'm sorry, you broke.
What did it feel like when you were about to tailspin and when you were kind of hitting rock bottom? Like, what did you feel like?
I didn't feel anything. Like, I didn't care. It was like, for me, it was do or die. Like, I didn't give a shit about anything. I didn't care if I ended up dead. I was basically homeless. I left the apartment. I couldn't live there anymore. And I was going from house to house, from, couch surfing from hotel to hotel. And my life became completely out of control. And I couldn't feel. That was part of the issue, that I couldn't feel. I lacked that ability to feel. And that was part of my issue. And in this time period, my mom died. She died in a car accident. That was another traumatic thing. She died a year before Jay did, on the same day, July 18th. And so she died on July 18th. Jay died the next year on July 18th. And just my life became it just became miserable for me. Well, fast forward to now, on July 16th, 2016, I went crazy in my apartment. It was like a psychosis. I thought I was paranoid. Like I thought people were after me in my apartment. I started ripping shit off the walls, and something fell in my eye and I passed out. I woke up to the Long Beach Police Department screaming like, "Hey, what are you doing down there? Like, what's going on? Da da da." And I managed to stumble downstairs to the bottom of where down the stairs where the police were, and they handcuffed me and they're like, "Who's up there with you?" I'm like, "Nobody." And they're like, "Why are you bleeding?" I'm like, "I have no idea." And so I was high as a kite, out of my mind. I woke up in the hospital. They told me that they were like, we thought you were gonna die. And it was that moment I was like, I have to do something about it. So I got released from the hospital. I went home, and just like any other addict, I had more dope left over. So I wanted to finish it, and I finished it. And then on July 18th, which was a Monday, I picked up the phone and I called AA meetings, NA meetings, Crystal Meth Anonymous meetings, and I said, I need help. And they're like, "Okay, where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm at so-and-so." "All right, come here at this time and we're gonna help you." So I walk into my very first meeting, and I just felt like a whole bunch of weight lifted off. And I haven't looked back. And I had experience working in publicity and working at a television station, working in radio. And I'm like, let me go back to what I know. And that is people. People like working with me. I love working with people. And, I've worked with other publicists and things like that. So I just applied for a PR job, and I got it. So I've been with the same firm for, 4.5 years now, and I haven't looked back. I haven't relapsed. I've had to do a lot of inner work with myself, therapy, and that's what I have been dealing with. Like I said, I see a therapist all the time about my mental health. I still deal with a lot of traumatic things that have happened, but I'm so grateful beyond anything. Like I have a gratitude list I send to my friends every morning, what I'm grateful for. And it's the small things like a cup of coffee, a job, not a job. Not that I have a job, but I get to show up. Mm-hmm. There's a huge difference. Like I get to show up to a job. A lot of people can't say that. Mm-hmm. So I look at it in that perspective. Like I get to show up for friends who need help. I get to show up for my friend Lindsay, who was doing a show who I'm so happy to be a part of. And I had to readjust my entire thinking and kind of restart my life, regrowing up, if you will. I had to rewire my whole thinking. And so thankfully, by the grace of my higher power, I am sober for 4 years and 7 months.
I'm so happy to hear that. Like, first off, congratulations. I knew you had a story, but I didn't know it was that intense. It makes me want to cry, hearing that you had to deal with that. And it's, something that I learned from talking to people and from my own life is trauma and hard things. They don't go away. They're always with you to some degree. And it's like learning how to live with that and not let it take you over. You talked about how you rewired your brain. What were like some thoughts that you thought before that you had changed that helped you overcome everything?
Well, I was afraid to tell anybody my story. I was afraid. I was ashamed. I was thinking to myself, what would they say? What would they think? What would they do? And I was like, I don't care. I don't care. It's my truth. It's my story. And I get to tell it the way it happened to me. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened to me. That was because I always cared about what other people thought about me, even when I was using. Like I cared about the store clerk who thinks I'm going to steal from them. I cared about the clerk at the checkout line who thought I was high. I cared about the person walking their dog thinking like, oh my God, look at that crackhead walking down the street. I cared. And to an extent, caring is okay, but like it really just it dominated everything I did. Like I cared, even when I started getting sober, I cared too much about what other people thought of me and what they, am I too fat, too skinny? Am I losing too much weight? Have I gained too much weight? Am I good enough? Not good enough? Any of that stuff. I cared about everything, every step of the way. Now it's like, I don't care. This is my truth, and I'm telling it. This is my story, and I'm telling it. So yeah, I a big part of my happiness is not giving a shit about what other people think of me.
Yeah, you have to just care about what you think about yourself.
Exactly. Now, do I care like what my friends think of me? To some, yeah, I want my friends to know that I'm there for them. I care for them. I'll help them in any way.
Empathy for others is one thing, and then letting
Right.
it dictate your life or too far of an extreme is another.
Right. Exactly. So so the balance.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are really not caring about other people, and having a higher power. I know that sounds cliche, but like, I have different higher powers. Like sometimes my higher power is RuPaul, sometimes it's Wendy Williams, sometimes it's Katie Tur from MSNBC, who I love and admire. So I just have different higher powers.
I think that's great advice, though, because I think the moral is we have to have something to believe in that keeps us going. And we have a choice what we want that to be. And like you said, sometimes you change yours. And I think that's a wonderful tip, because you don't have to believe in God or have a religion. The choice is whatever you choose to follow, to inspire you to be better.
Exactly. And sometimes my higher power is, Little Kim. When I like to channel my Little Kim, when I like to listen to like her old albums, I channel my Little Kim sometimes, and then Celine Dion too. I can't forget about Celine Dion, because sometimes she's my higher power. So that's, I have a variety of things I look up to, and the universe kind of, a lot of times, let's just keep it real. A lot of times say, oh, like I'm spiritual and I and like it becomes like this spiritual thing becomes so forced by sometimes people like, like I just do what I know is right, because we're grown. I'm grown. I know what's right. I know what's wrong, and I treat people the way I would want to be treated. I like being a kind person to others. So that's I treat people the way I would want to be treated.
Mm-hmm. And so, knowing what you know now, what would your advice to your younger self be?
Oh God, don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. My advice would be is whatever it is that you're going through, talk about it, seek help, because there was, like I said, there was a lot of traumatic things that happened when I was younger that I never really got to get off my chest until after going through what I've gone through. So if I was giving advice to my younger self, is get the help that you need. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to see a therapist. So that would be it. I mean, ask for help. Yeah.
And we only have a few minutes left, but is there anything else you want everyone to know about your story or to learn from you?
Whatever I just said, I want people to understand that there, again, this does sound like a cliche, but there's hope. Like I was arrested for drug use and for selling drugs, Lindsay. Like that's pretty fucking low. Okay. I have gone to those parties where there's drugs all over the place, scales, baggies to load up the baggies with dope so you can sell it. Like, if I have gone through that, death, suicide, I've attempted, I've thought about killing myself. I have gone through the fucking ringer, but there's hope. and I know that sounds like a cliche, but if there was hope for somebody like me who was just a street rat on drugs, there's hope for anybody.
Yeah,
So,
I'm so happy you're here. I mean, had I not met you, you know, I mean, you're like a light in this world. So it really just shows if you can overcome with all of that, anyone can overcome anything, but we have to allow ourselves to.
Yes, exactly. And go through what you need to go through, but action too. Action. Like I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And people always say, oh, put it out to the world, it'll come to you. But yes, put it out to the world, but work for it. Mm-hmm. You have to put the step work in, which is something you taught me. Like I wanted to do so many, I wanted to travel more. I wanted to, you know, I want to buy a home. I'm in the process of buying a home, Lindsay.
Congratulations.
I should show you my little Posty wall that I have that you taught me, Lindsay.
Oh my God.
You taught me about I should show you in my.
Yeah, you have to show me. Oh my God. You're so exciting.
Let the universe take its course.
Oh my God, see those?
I deserve good things. I am worthy of love. Let love come to me. Home ownership. Those were some of the things that I put on my you know, on my mirror, because I look at it as a reflection, right? Mm-hmm. And I am now in the process of buying a home. Yep. I am dating. I'm on the dating scene. You know, I've gone through the dating thing or whatever, but you know, it's like, I want to date somebody. Well, then get online, get on Hinge, get on Facebook dating, whatever, put yourself out there. Don't expect some guy to come knocking on your front door looking for you, because it's not going to happen. You know, when people say, oh, let it work, take its course. No, you have to go out there and do, you know, like, I want to buy a home. Okay, I got to save up money. I can't eat out every other day. I got to watch where I'm spending money and whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, you have to put it out there for it to come back. You have to put it out there and do the work for it to come back.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for being here and breaking up our day. And we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.